Welcome to Driving the Cbus. I'm your host, Scott McComb. I'm chairman and CEO of a little community bank in Columbus, Ohio called Heartland Bank. My travels really exposed me to some very interesting people, entrepreneurs that are world-class people in their own right, but run businesses that are up and coming in the 13th largest city in the country, which is Columbus. Each one of them is also unique in their own way. Their upbringing is different. Their family life might be different, but ultimately, the one thing that holds us all together as entrepreneurs is hard work and dedication and our love of our people. So that's what we try to do here on the podcast, is figure out what makes these entrepreneurs tick, what makes these areas of Columbus what they are, and how Columbus really became the place that it is today. Well, today on Driving the Cbus, we have Zach Woodruff here from the City of Whitehall. Zach and I have built a really quality relationship over the last several years, and we'll get into that story when time permits. But Zach is currently the Director of Development of Public Safety, the City of Whitehall. Focuses efforts on job growth and expansion, negotiating development agreements. It's led to more than $100 million in new private investment in the City of Whitehall. So I don't know if you guys have been out to Whitehall lately, but Whitehall is back. So there's a lot of things going on out there that the community so deserves, and really with the leadership of Mayor Kim Maggard and other folks there, along with Zach and his team, they've really taken Whitehall to the next level. Whitehall actually is a place that has about 11,500 jobs now in a 5 square mile area. So their schools are all brand new. They have a high quality of education, and the community is really coming together. And it's all from a lot of things that the Zach has helped do. From 2008 to 2011, Zach served as the City of Whitehall's Community Affairs Coordinator, and he was responsible for overseeing the city's grant portfolio, requiring the research and administration of nearly $14 million in federal and state local grants. In 2012, he also continued as the Director of Economic and Community Development, initiating and executing economic strategies and policies, and making major efforts to add and retain over 1,500 jobs in the community. So he also serves on the board of directors of the Mid-Ohio Development Exchange, the Pride of Whitehall, the Whitehall Community Improvement Corporation, and Ground Level Solutions, Inc. He was born and raised in Whitehall, currently resides in Pickerington with his wife and 3 children. Please help me welcome Zach Woodruff.
Thanks,
Zach, welcome
Scott.
to the podcast.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on today.
My pleasure. Hey, tell me just a little bit about Zach. I mean, you got 3 kids. I follow you on Facebook. I see that you are doing a lot of things with your kids all the time. You can't deny them. They look exactly like you. Tell me about being a father and what life is like in Pickerington, Ohio.
Sure. So, well, thanks for having me on. So, as you mentioned, married to my beautiful wife, Jessica, for 11 years. Actually just celebrated our anniversary here recently, and have 3 kids, 9, 7, and 3. Going from 2 kids to 3 kids is always interesting. Going from man-to-man defense to zone has been an experience, but trying to accomplish the work-life balance, and so really trying to put an emphasis on being home, being present, and being active with the kids. So coaching Little League, I just got done coaching flag football for my middle son, which is an interesting experience. And live in Pickerington reminds me a lot of growing up in Whitehall, because I'm from Whitehall originally, and so grew up in Whitehall. Attended Ohio State University, graduated from the Ohio State University, and have spent the last almost 20 years in some level of public service with the city. Started on city council when I was 20. And worked my way up to being the chair of the finance committee at 23, and then went to work in the administration in 2008. So I've I'm now with the exception of one other person, the most senior person in leadership with the city.
Is that some sort of record? 20 years old, being a city council person? Surely that's got to be up there with the youngest in Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, so for a while I was. There are a couple other folks that have done similar things. There's a gentleman who's on Dublin City School or Dublin School Board. There was another Pickerington council person who was about my age, but it's definitely not the norm to see somebody who's a sophomore in college at the Ohio State University be on city council.
So what was that like? I mean, when you were there, I mean, surely that you had some barriers to break through. I mean, people may have thought, Zachy, this is how we do it here at the city. I mean, because you were still, pretty young, right? I mean, pretty young, inexperienced. I mean, what was that like interacting with the other council people that may have been there for decades, if not years?
So it was interesting. I think part of the reason originally I got appointed to council was I spoke for a completely different generation. And my emphasis was to speak for young people, to try to make Whitehall more of a place, a destination that young people would want to move to or to work in or those kind of things. I spent the first 2 years just really trying to kind of sit back and listen and learn. Former Mayor John Wolf told me just take the first year and get your toes wet. And so, learning from my colleagues on council and sharing insight as to a different perspective. But I think they realized very early on that, I was someone who could, quickly acclimate to any situation, could learn. Even if I wasn't a homeowner, certainly understood what home owning meant and what it looked like and the challenges. And so, my work ethic, I think, showed them very early on. That's why, my colleagues selected me as chairman of the finance committee, 3 years later, to help manage the city's, at that time, $20 million budget, and worked with then auditor Kim Maggard to develop long-term financial policies and investment strategies and all those things. So it was interesting because I was, working at the time at the Family Video in Whitehall, going to school full time, and then was on city council. So, I would get up most days at 5 to be ready for class down on campus at 7. Would do class from 7 to 11 in the morning, and then would work usually from 3 to 11, and then study from 11 to 2 and do the whole rat race over. Did that usually 5-6 days a week. But my schedule allowed the flexibility so that I could meet with residents, or I could attend meetings, or, I could be involved in, not just in the evenings. Because as I got older and had a full-time job and got married, what was interesting, was then, with a full-time job, then you're really, okay, I can do a meeting at 4 o'clock. I can do a meeting at 6 o'clock. When I was on council and in college, it was a lot easier for me to say, no, I can be there at 11 o'clock. And so it was a unique experience that, some of the traditional college experiences I didn't have because I was on city council and an elected official, so took that very seriously. And so I remember Judge Julie Lynch was our city attorney when I got appointed, and she said that, and it stuck with me, I had to live every day as if Channel 4 was over my shoulder with their camera. And so had to real quickly grow up and take that additional responsibility on.
Gotcha. Now, what made you think that you wanted to be, or what was your major in college?
My major was criminal justice.
Criminal justice. Okay. So we kind of have the same major. Mine was criminology.
Yeah.
At the Ohio State University. Yeah. After a failed attempt at English broadcasting and education. So
I went to Ohio Dominican my freshman year and thought I was going to be a teacher. And realized very quickly that was not going to be my path. Transferred to The Ohio State University, where fortunately they decided to take a second chance on me after my first quarter, where I got a whiff, withdrawal, incomplete, fail, so not the strongest first quarter. at Ohio State.
I majored in high street at Ohio State. I was pretty good at that.
Well, by the time I
They
got
don't
there,
give a certificate for that, though.
well, by the time I got there, they had discontinued that degree because that's when they, the before campus gateway was all built, but they had torn down everything.
All the good places.
All the good places.
Right,
so Panini's, South High was gone and all those good places. But so when I got appointed to council and transferred to Ohio State, I didn't want a poli-sci degree because I thought, well, I'm living that experience. Let's get something else. So I did criminal justice and a focus in sociology. So I took sociology of almost every single area you can of the family, of the justice system, of marriage, of sports, of everything. And growing up in Whitehall, my competitive outlet was politics because I'm bad at sports. I try real hard, but not real good. I jump and get closer to the ground. And so, working to improve my community was my kind of outlet. And that's still the focus I take today. It's nice when you can go talk to residents and they'll say, oh, well, you don't live in Whitehall. And I'm like, well, that's true, but I spent 25 years living here. And this is my town too. And so that's, I wrote a letter when I was a freshman at Ohio Dominican as an English project. You had to write a letter to a group where you were advocating a change. Well, all the other kids in the class were writing, I want a skate park here, or can Taco Bell open, can they be later hours over here? And mine was, hey, Whitehall City Council, we should change term limits. I was 19 years old and writing about term limits in Whitehall. That was the social change I wanted to see. And so that's part of just been in my DNA about wanting to make Whitehall a better place for families, for people working there, for people wanting to visit there, driving through there. I mean, whatever it is, has just kind of been in my DNA since I was young.
And that's just been a natural progression then from that, having that burning desire to change your hometown to now becoming a development director. That's how it all started?
Yeah, that's how it all started.
Wow.
And I just kept missing meetings, and they kept appointing me to things. So
yeah, never missed the meeting if you don't want a responsibility.
I've never missed a meeting since.
That's right.
But no, it's been that progression. So I've gone from working as the community liaison, community affairs coordinator that you mentioned earlier, and doing grants and outreach and human services conduit, to deputy development director, to then leading our development efforts. And then when the mayor merged the building department and service department and development all into one, so that our public service side had the same customer-centric mentality that you see typically in development. We can have processes, but let's tailor them to our customers. So if our customers come to City Hall, if the heaviest flux of them happens between noon and 3, well, let's staff that appropriately. Or if inspections are occurring at such time, well, let's staff that appropriately. Let's make that process easier for residents, for business customers. And that's been a real emphasis of mine over the last 4 years as public service director.
So you're attempting to apply common sense to the municipal sector.
Yes.
Which is sometimes something that you don't see everywhere. You do see it in certain places, right? I mean, we're talking about the effectiveness of the government, right? And so
we're the government.
That's not what the podcast is about, but we could have like 5 more series of podcasts on effectiveness of government,
right?
Or the ineffectiveness of government. But the fact of the matter is, the way you guys are talking about customers instead of citizens, and that's a conscious. That's a conscious reality that you guys have created, right, in the city of Whitehall and under your direction, that we really need to be competitive as a city. And how we get competitive is to maybe act like we're private sector folks, right, instead of a public sector.
I think that's exactly right. That comes from our mayor, Kim Maggard, and that is the vision she has set, the focus she has set. So all of her departments, I think, act that way. I have always viewed our job as people in Central Ohio have a choice on where to live, where to place a business, where to grow a business, where to make investments. They have those choices no different than someone has a choice on where to buy a shirt. And so when you, I think, start to look at how do I tailor my public service to maximize the effectiveness to the customer. I think that is a mindset that we've used since Kim Maggard became mayor in 2012.
So what? Tell me, Kim is an amazing person. She really is. Mayor Maggard. Mm-hmm. She's, I remember the first time I met her. She was, she was running. I think for maybe the first time she might have been running for mayor, and she just really struck me as somebody that was sincere, brutally honest. If you didn't want to know what she thought, you shouldn't ask her. Just really upfront, and this is what we need to do in the city, and this is why I'm doing this, and she's really just stuck to her knitting and continued to perform, well in that role, as she's surrounded herself with quality people and built out a great team, and so hats off to the mayor there. She's done an excellent job, and obviously, you guys have a great working relationship.
Yeah, we do, and it's been nice because her and I have worked together almost my entire career in Whitehall, first as auditor and now as mayor. And you're correct. If you don't want to know what she's thinking, don't ask, because otherwise she'll tell you. I remember very early in her first term, we were in her office, and she said, "Zach, we're going to take the sacred cows out and shoot them. We're going to embrace tradition, but we're not going to be beholden to things that no longer work." There were a lot of things that we did in Whitehall that had worked in the 80s and maybe worked in the 90s, but certainly weren't working in 2012. And so we weren't going to be scared to make different choices and to put Whitehall on a different path. She is very active in the Central Ohio community. She's chairperson of the Morpsey Policy Roundtable. She chairs the Central Ohio Mayor and Managers Association here locally. And so when you have someone who is able to take and understand kind of best practices outside of Whitehall and then apply them to Whitehall, a great example, our police chief, Mike Crispin, is the first external candidate for chief that Whitehall's ever hired in its history. We always hired internal candidates. And she said, well, does that guarantee us the best candidate? Well, it doesn't. And so she hired someone from outside through the competitive process. And the results of that have been dynamic. Since the new police chief came in, they've implemented a new strategic plan at the end of 2016. And since that time, violent crime in Whitehall has dropped 36%. Robberies and burglaries have been cut in half. We're really on a positive trajectory as it relates to public safety.
Oh, yeah. Did they also get a national award for first responders and things from the Department of, I forget which
Department of Public Safety? That was a joint award for between police and fire, and in part dealt with our response to the opioid crisis. Again, another innovative approach to that.
You're born right in Whitehall.
Yes.
Nationally recognized.
Absolutely. So the mayor truly believes in a holistic approach as it relates to the opioid crisis. You have to hold the drug dealers accountable, but also work to help the addict. And so on the public safety side, on the police side, she had the police department institute a drug task force at the end of 2015. Since that time, they've seized over $3 million worth of illegal drugs, cash, and weapons, and have made hundreds of arrests of drug dealers. At the same time, our Division of Fire, through a grant through Franklin County and through the federal government, instituted an opioid crisis grant program that does a number of things. The most significant is we opened up our fire station as a safe station for anyone that was addicted to heroin and wanted to get clean. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anyone can show up to the Whitehall Division of Fire. After a 5-minute wellness check, they can then be transported to a detox facility. Usually it's Maryhaven. And in the first 6 months, Scott, we transported over 400 people. And those 400 people have a 52% success rate getting through detox and some level of residential stay. The national average is 14%. We're one of the first communities in the region to distribute Narcan. We're one of the first communities in the nation to distribute fentanyl test strips. because we know that just for smoking, as an example, it takes the average smoker 7 times before they're actually able to kick the habit. I can't imagine how much more difficult it would be being hooked on heroin. And so we are making sure that those users, those abusers, can get to the 7th time where they really are able to kick the habit. And so, we've had the United States Surgeon General, we've had, Senator Portman, hold roundtable conversations about the heroin epidemic, at Whitehall, because it is a national model. And that, again, that comes from that leadership from the top with Mayor Maggard saying, okay, what's the problem and what are the innovative solutions that we can implement? Maybe they're implemented in the region, maybe they're implemented in New England somewhere, maybe they're implemented somewhere out west, but how can we find or create the best model that helps our customers?
It's called the WHO, right? The WHO program, Whitehall Help for Overdosers.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's how we're going to, affect those kind of problems in our communities, is to create programs for intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Locking people up, generally doesn't do the trick, and anymore they just let them go anymore.
Right.
But getting them help is the most important thing. Now, so so we've got the public safety is an up and coming thing and doing very, very well. I know we added in Whitehall, they added 4 canine units. They've added officers. This is all part of the strategic plan that you've helped create in Whitehall to bring Whitehall back. And so you and your team should be commended on the things that you've done. And that's what attracted Heartland to Whitehall, is that long-term vision. You shared that with me before half of it was even true, and I believed you, and thank goodness, because we're there and we're doing well and the city's doing well. Tell me about the economic development aspects of the city and how you're adding value for the residents there and frankly for Columbus.
Yeah, absolutely. So, since we came in 2012, we've added 2,300 net new jobs. We've increased revenue 25%, which has added $5.7 million in new annual income to the city. And we've done that because we've been aggressive and innovative in our approach to economic development, just like public safety. And so, our meeting, in 2015, to start getting this ball rolling, we're really excited about where things are going. We've been, very successful in our development efforts. Not only with your new corporate campus there on Hamilton Road, but also with the Wasserstrom Company and Right Rug Flooring's headquarters, and increasing our number of small businesses in the last 3 years alone. We've had 150 new businesses open in Whitehall. And so, our staff tries to work with not only large businesses, but we have a key point person on our staff that deals with those small and startup companies to try to make sure that our code and our process and whatnot isn't being too restrictive and allowing them to breathe. So they can thrive in Whitehall. And so you're seeing, the word of mouth, I think, is getting out about Whitehall and our ability to be innovative. We changed our zoning process. So now we can get people a property rezoned in Whitehall and through city council for all the approvals in under 9 weeks. Our commercial plan review, and this, time is money. So our commercial plan review from submitting plans to issuing building permits, we're averaging 8 days. And we're doing that because, again, our customers have said these are the important places. These are the places where we need to move to make a difference.
All those projects, I just know our experience in dealing with the city of Whitehall. It was just, yes, how can we help? You weren't a barrier at all. So it's very, very easy to deal with. You don't find that everywhere with dealing with municipalities, with rezoning and such and so forth. So, you guys are really a kind of a can-do shop, right? So you meet people, you try to create that relationship, and then it's how can we help you be successful in our city? And that kind of attitude, I think, just moves mountains. Now, you've got a couple really large developments going on. I mean, and then I did want to touch also real quick on Parks and Rec and what's going on for the city, that you guys are doing for the residents of the city. But you have Norton Crossing, which is a 30-some acre development?
So that Norton Crossing is the 25 acres at the southwest corner of Broad and Hamilton.
Right, and that's being developed by...
that is Continental and Frank Cass.
Right, so I remember when I met with Frank, when I was talking to him, he wanted to build our corporate center, and we were having a drink at the athletic club. And Frank's a great guy, great, icon here in Columbus and throughout the Midwest. And of course, he wanted to not only build our building but fill it full of furniture, right? Because he's got all those angles covered. And he said, "Where are you going to build at?" And I said, "Whitehall." And he says, and he kind of chuckled. He's like, "Whitehall? Why are you going to go to Whitehall?" And I said, "Oh, Frank," I said, "there's all kinds of stuff happening in Whitehall." It's kind of funny that he chuckled at one point and now he's building on the corner there.
Right.
A giant development.
Exactly. So, I mean, when you were talking to Frank was, at the very beginning of 16, and we selected Continental and Frank Cass at the end of 16. So the city acquired a 272 unit apartment complex that was on 18 acres, was a public nuisance. And so the city stepped up and said, okay, well, we're going to buy it and we're going to change the future for that corner. And so we bought it and closed on it middle of 16, put out an RFQ, spoke with Frank a number of times, ultimately knew that Frank would be a great champion for us in the marketplace and at that corner. He's obviously known for quality and for, committing to and sticking with and completing, what he says he's going to do.
Yep.
So Norton Crossing is a $50 million mixed-use project. It'll feature 360 upscale residential units. It'll feature a 1.5-acre public park, and probably, when it's all phased out, probably 80,000 square feet of commercial, including retail and restaurants. And we're really excited. So, it started with the 17 acres, and then the city or Continental acquired all of the adjacencies to those original 17 acres, and now it's 25 acres, and they're currently digging footers and pouring concrete. So we're really excited about it, and that opened the door. You talk about being innovative. Again, Mayor Maggard not being afraid to take risk, smart risk, but not, wanting to sit back and just let the private sector do it, knowing that we could help drive some of that development. So this past January, after an 11-year-long public nuisance case in Franklin County Environmental Court, the city acquired another 35 acres on the northeast corner that currently has 154 buildings and 317 condos on it, and we're in the process of transitioning that complex to empty. And then we'll, here in the next 60 days, put out an RFQ for that site as well. But those 35 acres, along with the 15 acres of the former Golf Dome property that we have an RFQ that'll go out sometime in July, that will mean 75 acres at Broad and Hamilton, which is one of Central Ohio's most important intersections. But 75 acres that potentially could have 1,000 residential units and 500,000 square feet of commercial and 5 acres of public green space and a pedestrian orientation, and allow the city to also start to really move the needle on some of the larger conversations in Central Ohio as it relates to how do we integrate public transit, how do we address affordable housing, which is an area that Mayor Maggard's been a leader in since she became mayor. But it really sets up this amazing opportunity. We haven't had 75 acres at Broad and Hamilton to develop in probably 75 years.
Well, I mean, where is there 75 acres inside of 270 to develop anywhere in Franklin County?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think there's another piece. And you got to mention, also, we have a $100 million investment going on in Mount Carmel, which is really just across the river.
Right.
Super close. And of course, the whole East Broad Street corridor is just really busting as well. So you sit right strategically between Bexley and downtown and the near east side. So all of that development is just going to be a game changer for the city as well. I mean, not to mention all the other things that you have accomplished in your how many years has it been now? 11 years or
11 years as in development. Yeah.
So 11 years. It's wonderful, Zach. I mean, you should really be proud of your accomplishments and the team's accomplishments over those times.
Well, thanks. It's my dad, so where I grew up is 18 houses down from City Hall, and so my dad always makes sure to call or text me things in Whitehall that he either thinks we're doing great or that we need to improve. So I joke with our team that I have almost two bosses, the mayor and my dad, to make sure we're doing the right things. But every economic development project we put forward, every redevelopment, every business, all that's doing is adding revenue to the bottom line for the city. And that revenue has allowed us to make the investments in public safety. It's allowed us to make significant investment in our parks and recreation. And that's an area that I couldn't be happier for. We have a new parks director, newer. She's been with us now 2 years, so I probably have to stop saying newer. But Shannon Sorrell is our parks director.
Yep.
We were fortunate.
Great job.
We were fortunate to steal her from Gehanna. She has done incredible things. So we are in the midst of investing almost $10 million into our park system. So we've added 25 new acres of parkland. We're creating a new standalone dog park. We've increased our park programming. We're transforming Whitehall Community Park into what will end up being about an 80-acre nature park with connectivity to Big Walnut Creek, with acres of wildflowers and meadows. And then the most important thing that the Parks Department is doing right now is they are transforming what was a underutilized activity building in Community Park, in the shadow of your building, in a partnership with the YMCA of Central Ohio, into a 25,000 square foot Whitehall Community Park YMCA facility. And this facility is not your standard YMCA swim and gym kind of building. This is much more of a programmatic center, one that focuses on how do we improve the lives of our residents and our employees that work in the city. So how do we do financial literacy, and how do we do life skills and job skills, and how do we do ESL, and how do we do cooking classes? And so it'll have a fitness center, just like you would find at any other Y. It'll have an instructional kitchen. It'll have a really robust after-school and youth program shop that we're really excited about. We've partnered with our school district, so middle school kids are going to get bused after school to the YMCA, and so we really believe that this will be a hub for the city, and we couldn't be happier with the direction that Shannon Sorrell is taking our parks, because she has really been a catalyst in that department.
Yeah, that's why I'm super excited about that. Of course, it's right next door to our corporate center, and but they're going to have a music room where kids can experiment with different instruments and things like that. They're going to have a media room where they can do social, not just social media, but different kinds of media, podcasting, all kinds of different things that they can do in there. And that, so that process that you guys went through to develop what the programs would be at the Y and how the Y was going to be built out was phenomenal. I mean, I participated in those roundtable discussions myself, and you guys just. It was you really just delivered. I mean, people asked and you delivered, and that's there wasn't some preconceived notion of what this was going to be. It's, hey, what's the community want? What are the needs we have? And most of it revolved around youth development, and that really lights a fire in me, because that's what we're all about at Heartland is youth development. We really feel that those opportunities that you can provide for young people in their formidable years really make them who they are, and can help them overcome obstacles that are put in front of them. So we're really excited to see all all that programming happen as well. Congratulations, Zach, on everything that's happened to the City of Whitehall, to the Whitehall team, Parks and Rec, the Police and Fire Division. This things couldn't be better in the city. I think it's been a renaissance and still coming. So we're by no means anywhere near done. That's for sure. Any final thoughts you have today that you want to share?
It's funny you mentioned that because I think you're exactly right. I think we are at the end of the beginning. And so I used to have a city attorney that we did our first development project, and he said, "Well, kid, you've tackled all the low-hanging fruit. What are you going to do next?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to buy a ladder, and then everything's low-hanging fruit." I mean, we're really excited, and the thing that gets my juices going is no matter what area is important to you, recreation, our parks, economic development, public safety, whatever it is, we're making significant strides because it's not just one thing. It's 9 things or 7 things or 4 things or 6 things. And so when you look at it, the mayor says a lot that, improving a community development is much more of a Rubik's Cube than it is checkers. And so we're really getting all of those pieces to play and to work collaboratively. And again, a lot of that goes back to getting businesses like Heartland Bank to see the vision and to buy in and to be such great partners in our redevelopment.
Well, it's been our pleasure indeed. So, Zach, hey, thanks for coming on the Cbus and driving the bus here in Central Ohio through making Whitehall a better place to live, work, and play. So thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Scott.